Jack Mitchell, man, I'm so excited to have this episode because Airbnb arbitrage is your main thing, right?
Yes, sir.
That's your main thing. And I'm super excited to have you, man, because I have so many people that I see all over social media absolutely crush this game, whether they own the real estate, whether it's like a short-term rental arbitrage that I think that you're doing. And I really want to kind of unpack everything that you're doing, but I really appreciate your time coming in to talk a little bit about what you got going on, man.
I appreciate it, brother. It's
Of course.
great to be here.
Of course. I think, so I don't know too much about you, honestly. I feel like this is a really great intro to get to know each other a little bit,
Sure.
but I see you're wearing a Yankees hat. I don't think you're from New York, right?
I'm from New York.
You're from New York? Me too,
Yep.
man. So what's the story? What's the story of Jack Mitchell? Where'd you get started? Like born and raised or?
So I'm born and raised in Long Island.
Okay.
Wearing this hat in Florida. Big mistake.
Big mistake.
Big mistake.
Same thing, man. New York
crazy here,
Yankees,
man.
or not Yankees, but New York hat. They hate it.
But yeah, man. So I grew up Long Island, New York. I actually moved here for college. Went to USF first semester. I was going pre-med route, and then realized school was not for me.
Completely different.
Yeah. And then I dropped out about a year to start the Airbnb business. So it was kind of crazy how I got into all this though. So I was interning at a real estate brokerage at the time.
Okay.
I wanted to do, real estate sales. I wanted to be a real estate agent. Long story short, I'll be fully transparent. I was in a bad place at the time. I was getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I got declined to get my real estate license. So,
really?
Yep. Through DBPR, that whole group, they declined me to get my license. So
holy shit.
Yeah. So at that point I was like, I need to find a way to be able to make some money here. And I was just like scrolling on TikTok, like finding ways to make side hustles, all that kind of stuff. And I saw something about Airbnb arbitrage. It was like, I make $500,000 a month doing Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a scam. There's no way.
Yeah.
And the guy that I was interning for, we were at a team dinner for all the real estate agents. And I overheard a conversation. They were like, the owner, he makes, $1 million a year on Airbnb.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm like, there's got to be something with this. So, I just started doing all free content that I could watch, YouTube videos, webinars, everything that I could do for free.
Yeah.
I was just trying to learn and take it in because I was desperate at this point,
For sure.
to try and make some money. Scraped up some money, bought a course, bought a mentor, and then that was it ever since.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
Wait, so what's the timeline on all this? So you born and raised in Long Island, right?
Yep.
So then you moved down here, 2 years ago? I
redshirted a year because I played hockey in high school.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I went to college late. I went when I was 19. So yeah, probably about 2.5, 3 years now.
And how old are you now?
22.
20. Damn, you're young as shit, man. Let's go. And what you got going on now is you're a business partner with Connor, right? You have a business partner in the US 50-50 partners with everything?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. So how did you guys end up meeting?
So it's actually crazy, man. Connor's dad was my hockey coach growing up.
Okay.
And great guy. Like I know their family. And when I got my first property, I guess, everyone's wanting to get into Airbnb right now. So he hit me up on Instagram. He was like, hey man, I see you're doing the Airbnb. Like I'm doing business funding. And this was perfect because I didn't have any money. I had no credit.
Perfect.
And just going back a little bit, my first property that I got, I lost $15,000.
Damn.
So I was $15K in debt, no credit.
Wow.
All I had was savings money. I was working a moving job on the side. So he hit me up and I was like, this is perfect. Yeah. And then,
man, I love these stories. Man. So many ways that people get started. You mentioned that you saw a course and then you wanted to buy into that. What was that kind of journey right there? Was there somebody that you started trusting on social media? Because I meet so many people, me being involved in the digital media space, and I have a course, I have all that stuff. I've kind of seen a shift in that since 2020. 2020 was the boom of content and everything like that. People were blowing up any digital product that they created. You could literally just sell shit to somebody and they would buy it. Now I feel like it's like shifted a little bit. So I want to hear your feedback on the course that you took, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that. Yeah,
of course. It was actually funny. I remember talking to my dad about it and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about dropping out. My dad is very old school. He's like, go to college, get a job, which is fine. I'm not knocking that,
Yeah, of course.
But for me, I was never really school smart. I was always good at selling. Like when I was a kid, I was always selling shoes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and I went to him and I told him, I'm like, I'm going to buy this course and I'm going to try and start my own business.
Oh yeah.
And
do you remember the name of that course? or who was it?
Yes. I don't want to throw names.
No, you
out
can
there.
throw if they're like a big number, like
it was like I think it was Hamza Zafar or like Staley, stuff like that.
Okay. And the only reason I asked is because I know Blake Rocha, the 48 guy, and he's like the main guy in that. Feels like the big influencer in that aspect, and he's crushing it.
Yeah, no, he's killing it.
Yeah, but you have a similar model to him, so. That's why I was wondering if you guys if that was the course that you bought, but
so I was looking at their courses, and my dad, I remember him telling me, he was like, at this point, do what you want to do, but make sure you vet the people.
Of course.
And I actually started doing research. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And then I bought a course from a guy named Sean Rakajich, who he was like the pioneer in Airbnb arbitrage. I think he started in like 2016, 2017.
Okay. Yeah. So way before Blake.
Way before everyone. So he kind of put everything on the map.
Yeah.
So I learned from him, and very grateful for him because he taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And his knowledge of short-term rentals, hospitality,
really
everything. He's super solid.
It's insane to like hear how much people focus in on this because it's such a different game. It sounds so simple, right? It's like the Uber aspect of things. It's people create Uber, but there was already taxis. They're just making it simpler for people because they already have their phones, they have their geographic location, or they create Turo where you can rent cars because they're not owning the assets, but they're making a shit ton of money off this. And it's kind of similar space with the real estate. Real estate's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but to utilize something like this is genius. It's like, why wasn't this thought of before? So I've always been inspired by people like what you're doing because I don't want to say it's simple, but it's like such a cash cow, right? The infrastructure's already there. It's just almost kind of like putting something in place to sell people to be like, okay, you rent out this place for X amount of dollars, right? Actually, I kind of want to hear you explain it a little bit from your perspective because you're the expert in the space.
So, I mean, to make it simple, basically all you're doing, you're long-term leasing properties to short-term rent them. Mm-hmm. That's literally all you're doing.
Yeah.
So, I kind of consider it real estate investing without having to buy a house. Yeah. Wow. So, you could go to single family homes, landlords, you could go to management companies and you say, hey, I see you're struggling to rent your property out. I'll take over it. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want to get too much into the sales scripts and stuff either.
No, but we could definitely do that. Maybe we got some time if you want to.
But the thing is, I feel like the reason so many people want to get into this is because they think it's like too good to be true.
For
right?
Sure.
They're like, no way this could actually happen. No way you could just rent out a property and make it cash flow. There's got to be some sort of caveat.
Yeah.
But it really is that simple starting out, because you're providing a value to them too.
For sure.
For example, single family homeowner, they don't want to deal with the headache of tenants. They don't want to deal with the maintenance. They don't want to have to deal with any of these little things. So if you go to them and say, hey, I'll take over your whole property, they're just collecting rent checks at that point.
Exactly. And it's like almost locked in for a while. You can almost negotiate a little bit if you do a little bit long term, right?
For sure.
If you do like 2 years, 3 years, just kind of incentivize them to be like, listen, everything's going to be taken care of. But at this point, like I'll handle everything on the back end. So you don't even have to have a headache. You're just accumulating an appreciating asset and we're paying the mortgage for you every month, basically.
Exactly. Right? And they're cash flowing too. A lot of the time they'll mark it up.
They'll make that money. Man, it's such like I feel like, I don't know what it is, but every time I've taken a look into it, there's obviously a lot of research you have to do into it, right?
Of course. Yeah.
For example, to simplify Airbnb arbitrage, you're renting a unit. So say I go to an apartment and it's $2,000 a month, right? And then I can basically list that property on Airbnb, professional photos, correct? Like you need professional photos of everything, nice description. So it's kind of like an SEO thing where you're ranking higher on Airbnb. And then you rent that out for nightly rates. Is there automation that you can have in place to be like, okay, this is what I want to charge on a nightly basis? Or is it kind of like market rate? Is there like an automated thing within Airbnb that kind of tells you that? Like how's that whole process work?
Yeah. So that's where it gets complicated. When people say it's simple, that's where it gets really complicated. Understanding revenue management, understanding dynamic pricing strategy. So we use something called Price Labs, which basically what it will do, it'll basically look at the supply and demand of the market, and it'll adjust prices accordingly. But there's a lot of things that you could do on the back end to make it even better. So we actually brought on a full-time pricing strategist and data analyst who looks at a lot of the numbers, understanding seasonality. Airbnb is a very seasonal business. It's not the same throughout the year.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say 70% of our money is made within 4 months of the year.
Damn.
And then in slow season, you're not making much. maybe a couple $100 per unit.
Yeah.
But majority of the money is made in that busy season. So that's when you really want to.
What is that season for you? If
For Tampa. So it's from now until about May.
Really?
March.
Oh, because people migrate
March,
down
April.
because they're trying to escape the cold, probably, right?
Exactly.
Interesting. I wonder how that is like up north. Like, you know what I mean? Like if there was something, I actually had a place that I thought was a gold mine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but there was a place, I used to live in New York City, and there was a place in the Poconos. So year round, there's a ski resort. It's on a lake. So it's in the woods. People escape the city. I think it was $4 or $5 a month to rent out. It was like a 6-bedroom place, slept like 15 people, had an indoor pool, and it was just this massive place in like a perfect location on Mount Pocono. And you can list those things for like almost like 500 a night because it was so huge. And at that point, I was like, potentially could have brought in like 16,000 a month, 15,000 a month. I think I might be gassing those numbers, but, something that's like year round like that is really kind of where you want to target, right? Wouldn't you think that maybe up north it's like that if there was like am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say whatever market that you're in, it's always going to be seasonal. Yeah. There's always going to be better months there. Every single market anywhere in the US is going to have a slow season. They're going to have shoulder seasons, and they're going to have a busy season.
Yeah.
So actually I have a buddy who I met through the course. We were starting at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
I think he has 55 units in the Poconos right now, and he's killing it.
Oh, fuck.
He's killing it.
I knew it was a good one.
Yeah.
It's just such a good area, I feel like. But I mean, there's hidden gems all over the United States. So do you only have rental units in Tampa, or are you like kind of spread out throughout the US right now?
Yeah. So all of our units, all 48 units are in Tampa right now. We actually just closed a deal in Savannah, Georgia. So I'll be going there on February 1st. So
closing a deal for you, can you kind of like walk us through what that would look like? Is that more so like contacting the property, or like, how many units? Is it a single family home? I know you've mentioned that a few times.
So it's actually a brand new construction apartment complex.
Okay.
So that's what I'm personally targeting right now. I actually posted something about this on my Instagram recently.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of new build apartment complexes are going underwater. They're getting crazy. Really? Yeah. They're getting crazy rates on their commercial loans. So they're like struggling to fill up. So that's where we come in and we say, hey, we'll bump your occupancy up 15, 20%. We'll take however many units it is. It could be 10, 20, 30.
Yeah.
We'll do a long-term lease. It's guaranteed occupancy, guaranteed revenue. You're not gonna have to worry about a thing.
It's huge. And do you contact like the management side of things, or is it more like the front desk and like kind of like level set from there?
Yeah. So what I'll do starting out, I'll call the building, and I'll basically just say, hey, I own a corporate housing company. I'd love to get in contact with the property manager. You don't want to sell too much on the phone if you don't have to. If you could get direct to the owner, direct to the property manager, that's what you want to do. But it kind of worked out perfect because we were negotiating a deal with another building. So I was like, hey, we're working with another building right now. Do you think I could get in touch? And within 5 minutes, she emailed me. Because you could tell that, they're struggling.
They're eager, yeah.
Yeah, they're eager to fill up their units.
Is Savannah like a good market to be? Obviously, you're obviously landing deals, but like, what was I'm asking a bunch of questions just because it's so fascinating to me. But Savannah market, right? What stood out to you? Were like, oh shit, this could be a gold mine.
Yeah. So there's a software called AirDNA, which you could run all your data analytics, market research, everything through there. That's actually a great tip too for people watching. If you want to find out if a property is going to be profitable, that'll give you a good estimate on what your numbers are going to be. So they made a whole new software. They revamped everything. And Savannah was ranked number 1 market in the country.
Holy
so that's
shit.
why I was like, you know what? And it was funny too, because when I went on Zillow, I was looking for properties that had, a bunch of vacancies, and it was like a beautiful building, and it was a Greystar building, and they're probably the biggest management company in the world. So I was like, oh, they're not going to want to do anything. But I was like, I'll give them a call. I'll see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
And then ended up turning into a deal.
Was that like a quick turnaround thing, or do you kind of like jump through a lot of hoops with a lot of these companies?
A lot of hoops.
Yeah.
Negotiating is the longest part.
For sure.
So we've probably been in negotiation with them now for 2 months, 2-3 months.
Damn.
Yeah.
Is that like a daily thing too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Holy shit.
It's nonstop going back and forth, figuring out contracts, because we try and negotiate the best deals we can. So another thing that we do, we tell them the benefits that we're providing to them. So we negotiate free rent on the front end of the lease. And that's what we use to pay off the furniture.
I was going to ask you kind of like the overhead costs of all the startups and everything.
Yeah. So that's where the free rent comes in.
Okay.
Because you got to think about it too. If you're negotiating 2-3 year lease, they're not getting any turnover. They're not having any vacancy. They don't have to deal with evictions, all that kind of stuff. So when you go to them, like I said, you're providing a value. So we say, hey, you know, we need something back, especially if we're investing 100, 200 grand into the building.
Of course.
You know, we need to make a little bit of our investment back.
So you kind of like steer them towards giving us like a first month free of rent, so you can buy all that furniture kind
exactly.
of thing?
Exactly. So you can negotiate more, you could do less. For this specific deal, we got 30 days free on 10 units. Nice. But you know, we've gotten 3 months free before.
Wow.
We've gotten 2 months free. It all depends on
3 months is probably a gold mine in your eyes, right?
Yeah. I mean, by month 2, you're profitable. And then all that money on the 3rd month, you're just taking home.
Damn. That's so crazy, man. It seems so simple. Like the whole concept. I've done a lot of research. I don't know if you can tell by like some of the stuff I'm asking, but, I have my hands dipped in so many things that I really want to get involved in this. This actually was my goal 2023, but I think it's my main goal in 2024. I remember having a conversation with your business partner, Connor, about Charleston market. I was just in Charleston, South Carolina, and it seems like it's the hub for bachelorette parties, right? And like, that's where you really kind of want to look at, in my opinion. You're the expert, but, when I was looking at Charleston, it's like, there's so much there. Like I was looking at rent rates. Let me know if this is the roadmap, but I look at Airbnb and I kind of look at Zillow to see like, how much is this to rent out on a monthly basis? And then I look at Airbnb and I'm kind of like, okay, if this is like the average monthly or average nightly rate of like $350, it's so expensive. Think of how much money I'm making on top of this monthly rate just for Airbnb arbitraging that. And that's just one unit, right?
For sure.
Is that kind of like
so I've actually looked into Charleston as well. I would say the only thing with Charleston is that the rents are super high.
So high.
So, I mean, you're better off. It's going to be the same margin. Your rent could be $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
You bring in $10,000 a month revenue. You're still only making $2,000.
True.
And you're going to have to put more furniture costs into it. It's going to be more overhead, more stress, more likely to have parties. So we like to do 1 bed, 1 bath apartments.
Really?
Keep it simple. Take them at scale.
So it's not like a party.
Exactly. And that also attracts more business travelers. It usually attracts better clientele.
For sure. Especially like a slower market. Maybe Savannah is a little bit more slower paced than the bachelorette parties you probably don't want to sell to, right?
Yeah. I mean, it'd still be great though.
Yeah.
It could still be great. You just have to negotiate the right deal and find the right deal.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be good deals in every market.
You also probably have to think like back of your head. It's like, if they are going to throw parties or like trash the place, like you're probably going to want to target something more of like a Naples, Florida, or like not like a St. Pete over Naples, just because they're going to pay more because it's most likely an older demographic that you're targeting, and they're going there to kind of like relax and chill rather than like throw a banger and then you have to go replace all the shit that they broke, right?
Definitely. And there's ways around that. Like we're super strict with who we let in. So we put minute detectors in every unit. So basically what that is, it measures noise decibels. Yeah. So it measures heat frequency, crowd control. It measures everything. So we know what the noise level is. We know how many people are in there. We know if it's getting overheated, which means too many people are in the property.
Yeah.
We take double IDs, we background check, we check OFAC lists, sex offense, like everything you could think of.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, a lot of people say this is a real estate business. I don't think it's a real estate business. I think it's hospitality. You're dealing with a lot of people at the end of the day. So, maintaining and establishing relationships is the biggest thing.
So like, what are you doing like when it comes to like the party aspect of things? You said you got these what are those noise cancellation things called again?
Yeah. So those are called minute devices. So basically what those do, they'll measure noise decibels, they'll measure crowd control, heat frequency. So you're going to know every single thing that's going on in the property at all times. So you're going to know how many people are in there. You're going to know what the noise level is. You're going to know what the heat, everything you could think of, you're going to know.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we do very heavy screening. This is just because, like I said before, we want to make sure we're maintaining relationships with apartment building owners.
Yeah.
So you got to think, the Airbnbs that we have, they're in regular residential apartment complexes. So we have to be considerate to the other people who are living there long term. We don't want them causing problems with
noise
the normal
complaints.
tenants, noise complaints, just anything. So what we'll do, we use a background check company called AutoHost. So, yeah. So basically what they do.
You're about to answer my next question.
Yep.
Perfect.
So we'll take a second form of ID, which Airbnb already screens the guest beforehand.
Got it.
So they'll check, OFAC lists, sex offender registries, public, state, and county records. They'll do all that. And on top of that, when a guest books, we send out an automation, which will get a second form of ID. It tracks a VPN to know if they're within a 20-mile radius, because usually if someone's booking within, 10, 20-mile radius last minute, it's probably you know,
it's weird.
A little suspicious.
Yeah, 100%. It's so weird that there's like so many different filters out like that. Do you like personally go in and filter them out? Because I know I've read a lot about like, okay, I can get like a long-term nurse, you know, if they're doing like travel nursing, I can get like a long-term nurse in here for like 3 or 4 months, and they obviously pay almost double than what they would regularly pay because it's a short-term lease. So is there filters within Airbnb, or is it something that you have like internally?
Yeah. So what do you mean exactly by that?
So like how you're talking about like you screen them and like you're filtering out like who you can target to bring in there more so than like the party people. Is there like a way to do that, or is it kind of just like your own?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we do, like I'm a big believer on Airbnb for what we do. It's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
But I feel like the way that you market is the people that you're going to attract. So we'll literally put in the Airbnb listing, we have a smoking policy. You're going to be background checked. Yeah. So that right there gets rid of, 80% of bad people. But we don't have something beforehand other than that. It's when they book. The automation will go out and be like, hey, you're going to have to go through this background check.
Oh, then it'll kind of like pop up if there's like any red flags or anything.
Exactly.
Like that. Oh, that's cool.
And then what we could do, we trained our VAs to, send it to Airbnb and be like, hey, look, this person has a criminal record. This person is this. And then cancel their reservation.
That kind of leads me into my next thing, man. I feel like there's so much you have going on once you start to get at scale. Obviously, one property is probably making what on average about $2,000 a month. Would you say
$1,500? It depends though. So our townhomes on average are probably $3,000.
Okay. Oh shit, that's nice.
Yeah. But some months, like I said, it'll be $3,000-4,000 in profit, and then slow season will be $500.
Got it. Yeah. But at least you're still turning some profit.
Exactly.
So it's not like one property is going to be a consistent salary. It's more so you're going to want to use that, kind of reinvest the earnings that you're earning already to get to the point where you're at right now, which I gotta know. I gotta know. I was gonna ask you earlier, but how many units are you currently dealing with?
48.
48 units?
48 currently.
Across Florida and Savannah?
No, so just Tampa. So when we close the Savannah deal, we'll have 58.
Holy hell, man. So that's where the VAs come in. So I'm assuming like the structure is you guys kind of negotiate all the deals. You obviously have the SOPs and the scope of work in place for everything. Since you got like the pitch deck and all that locked in. So is it just kind of like VAs are handling it, or what's like the cleaning side of stuff? I know that can probably get pretty tedious tasks, right? Because you got to clean every time somebody leaves, or the management company now that they're in Savannah and you're in Tampa. How's that kind of work?
So it's actually kind of funny. I mean, when I had my first property, I was cleaning by myself.
Damn. I feel like that's how you got to get started, right? Got to get your hands dirty.
Because I wanted to save money. Yep. I wanted to learn so I could train the cleaners. And that actually reminds me of something you said before about like overhead expenses and everything like that. Mm-hmm. The cleaning expenses are the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And really? Crazy. We were paying our cleaning company probably $30,000 a month. Yeah. So that's one of our biggest goals right now is cutting expenses. So that 1,500 will now probably turn into 2,000 to 2,500.
Got it.
Because it's going to be an extra 20%.
I saw that actually. Somebody posted about like, hey, are you, does anybody have any cleaning fees or cleaning companies that can, at a competitive rate? So like that makes sense that would probably be one of the most things, because they're in there actively, right? It's like if there is like a 1 or 4 night stay, somebody's got to go in and clean up everything.
Yeah. Right? I mean, we're doing probably 400 to 500 turnovers a month.
Wow.
So it's a lot of cleaning.
Damn. These cleaning companies love you guys.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why, we have leverage at this point to go to cleaning companies and be like, hey, we give you this amount of business, but it has to be for our price.
At scale, right? Once you're at scale, it's like crazy. Is it weird to look back? Like how long has it taken you to get to 58 from that first one that you were getting your hands dirty by yourself?
It's been about a year and a month.
Holy
a year
shit.
and a month. Yeah.
Talk about explosion, man.
Yeah.
And you got to learn the whole way, like the whole, like, how do I keep this in front of me? Like, how do I keep this in control? Cause you could like kind of put too many cooks in the kitchen per se, you know, or I guess too many properties in one location and kind of like lose aspect of it. How do you kind of like keep that internally to yourself? I guess you and your business partner have these discussions, like, let's make sure that the upfront costs aren't going to hurt us, and making sure that all these turnover profit month over month.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the biggest thing is, first of all, touching on something I said before too. Mm-hmm. We have 35 units in one building and they're all profitable.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's why I talk about building relationships is so important. Because when I first started out, I was going to the building every day being like, what can we do to get a deal? Because, I pitched them, at the time I just got partnered up with Connor. So we didn't have a lot of leverage at that point. We had one property. So I was going there every day being like, what do I need to do to get a deal at this point? Because it was like 2 weeks have gone by. They didn't want to do it. Yeah. And they were like, you know what? You seem hungry. You seem like a smart kid. We'll give you 4 units. So I was like, okay, perfect. And after that,
pumped after that.
Oh my God. I felt like I was like on top of the world at that point.
Yeah.
And then we got another 10, and it got to the point now, just because we maintain the relationship, well, they'll come to us and be like, hey, we want to give you 10, 15 more units.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like Airbnb arbitrage, it's a little different from ownership.
For sure.
But it's super focused on people, making sure that you have the right relationships, making sure that you're going out of your way to maintain those relationships.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Dude, that's so cool. It's such a cool like model because it really is so scalable. And once you get to that size, do you ever get like a little, since you can't be at every unit at all times, especially now that you're breaking into a completely different state, do you think that that's going to like mess with you a little bit mentally, since you're like would like to be like hands-on right there, but like operations are happening statewide now?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I'm going to be fully transparent. 100%.
I feel like that would mess with me a little bit.
Yeah. Cause I mean, the thing is, I'm kind of a control freak too when it comes to the business.
Good thing.
And I actually, a few months ago, I had a conversation with Connor, my business partner, and he was like, look, I know you're like, you love this business, but, you have to put your trust in other people to handle certain things. And 100%. I heard a quote by, I don't remember who it was, but he was like, great CEOs, the thing that they know how to do is to delegate and put trust in people who could do it the right way. And that's something that, I was struggling with for a bit. I wanted to do everything myself. I wanted everything the way that I wanted it to be done. It was 100%. I was burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, you end up getting burnt out, man. Yeah. You'll see, if you pay attention to this podcast, you'll see a couple come out in a couple weeks. I know I have so many that I have to release, but I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of high up CEOs. One of the CEOs that I've had on here was, his name was Nick Friedman. He's the CEO of College Hunks, and he's doing like $300 million a year now in his company. And he's basically telling the number one way to scale is the people. The people is the number one thing to scale. And it's not really like, you're not going to be able to do anything, right? I was on a call with the CMO. That's not what I meant, but you're not going to be able to do everything, right? So I was on a call with the CMO of Coach, the handbag company. And he was basically telling me, learning a little bit about our company and how we could work together. But he was telling me like the same thing. And I was on another call with a guy named Keith Dunleavy, who's the CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar company. And all of them say the same thing. It's the people that work for you that helps you grow, that helps you scale. And you kind of have to be like putting your expertise and everything that you know into like a training deck, or like SOPs to pass on to somebody. So this is a pretty gruesome example, but if you die in a plane crash, you can hand over this little document and then the business can operate without you. You know what I mean? So like if everything in here is on paper and you can hand that to somebody and you can train them up correctly, if you have the right structure in place, that's what will trickle down to help you amplify your growth, because you're just one person. But if you can almost clone yourself on paper to hand out to people and train them up, the sky's the limit at that point. So
100%.
I thought that was a pretty great quote. It's kind of like on par with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that's where leadership comes into play too. Huge. Being a better leader instead of, trying to do everything myself, point people in the right direction, having more team calls, bringing more leadership into the company. That's one of my goals for 2024 too, is to bring in more leadership.
Of course.
Because, you can't expect these people to do everything by themselves without any direction.
Exactly.
So that's huge.
Yeah. And the people, they always say, like, those same guys are saying the people is the hardest part, because it's like, how are you going to find somebody that's motivated, and how do you pay them enough? How are they incentivized? Do they believe in your vision? Because they're not going to be the CEO or the founder, so they're not going to have that same motivation, but there's ways to like kind of lead them to make them motivated to get to that point, So I feel like you got the right path in terms of like where you're going now. Because a year ago, from having the 1 to having 48 or 58 now is a crazy, crazy jump. So it's cool to see like your level set on like, okay, now I know where to delegate this work to. It's cool.
I appreciate it, man.
It's cool, man. Especially coming from, like talking about the real estate license, not even be able to get that. It's like, is that kind of like a bittersweet feeling looking back and being like, oh shit, I can do anything I want? It's
the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because, at that point, like I said, I was not in a good place. I was getting in a lot of trouble. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
But I feel like it helped me grow. And now when I look back and I'm like, all this stuff would have never happened.
100%.
And it was a wake up call for me at that point. It was like, I'm not doing the right thing. I got to get my head on straight.
Yeah.
I got to do something. And I always wanted to start a business. So it was
kind of lights a fire under your ass.
Oh, it was crazy.
Once you get rejected enough times, you're like, it's almost like a fuck you feeling. Like, I got to prove something, not to them, but to yourself. It's like, it lights that fire. It's 100%. Really crazy. But so let me ask you a couple more things about your Airbnb business. So you went from here to now you're at 58. Is it kind of like an easy scaling process once you start to see the profit of one? Like, is it almost like a repeatable process over and over again to get you to like that snowball effect of now 58 and assuming probably many, many more in the future?
For sure. I mean, I feel like starting out is the hardest part.
Yeah.
So until you break the hump of being able to have leverage over these landlords and having prior units that you could go to them and be like, hey, look what we did here.
Yeah.
Or having relationships where, you know, you're of value to them. Yeah. So they'll come to you. So nice. I feel like, you know, after the first 6 months, that's when it really started taking off. My first 6 months, I was cold calling 100 plus people a day.
Damn.
Like trying to do everything that I could to get deals. But now we're at the point where we can't take any more units because we have a lot of people coming to us being like, hey, we have 20 units here, 40 units here. So, you know, getting over that hump is the biggest thing.
You know, what's interesting is I feel like the interest rates have hurt the real estate market a lot, right? There's like a lot of people saying like everything's too inflated, especially down here in Florida. Everything's a straight arrow right now. It's like if you buy something, you're buying the top, and like being involved in stocks and stuff, it's like doesn't make sense to me. Everybody in real estate would probably say differently. But do you think that's kind of like playing to your advantage a little bit? Because like you're saying, they're taking out high interest loans on these commercial properties. They're building up like crazy, almost too fast. And it's almost like we can't fill this because one, we have to charge too much on a monthly basis because we bought this for way too expensive. So now we're kind of in a troubled place. Do you think that a lot of these commercial places are going to start coming to you and be like, let me use your company to rent out a bulk of them and help you out in the future, right? So it's like the more you have, the merrier, right?
100%.
Do you think that that's kind of helping you, like the way that the interest rate in the market has kind of come? You know
Definitely.
I mean? Yeah.
You know, you hear people say all the time, you know, the best time to start a business is in a bad market.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Which doesn't really, like, when you hear it, it doesn't really make sense. But when you like really like analyze it, you're like, okay, this does, because people are desperate. Oh, 100%. And not to say that in a bad way either, because I mean, we like want to be good partners and we want it to be a win-win. I feel like that's why we've been able to scale so fast.
For sure.
Because, you know, I'm always trying to do stuff to make sure our partners are good too. Yeah. You know, because we're in it together at the end of the day. We want to see them win. We want to win. We don't want it to be one-sided.
Yeah. That's smart, man. Like it's cool. It's cool you say that, because last year, obviously owning a marketing company, nobody had marketing dollars. That's the first thing that gets cut when you market. Like you need to spend a lot of marketing to grow. But as soon as things start to go south, you cut your marketing budget. No. So last year we were like struggling to acquire a bunch of clients, but we just stayed in contact, stayed in touch, built our infrastructure in place. And now 2023, a couple months into 2023, a couple months at the end, and now 2024, we can't even keep up. Like we're gonna have to hire like 3 or 4 more people, because staying top of mind and like building those relationships while things are bad, it's like the scalability at that point now in 2024 is just crazy to keep up with. So building a business when things are rough definitely can help. I mean, I feel like I understand that a little bit, but it's kind of hard to put into words where like you can see yourself going after such like a rough time, you know?
100%. And that actually reminds me of something that we were talking about before. When I had one property, just the importance of relationships. Again, when I had one property, I remember reaching out to this one landlord. They had probably 400 or 500 units in Tampa. Damn. And I tried to pitch them. And like I said, at this time I had no money. I had no credit. So he was like, you're 21 years old. Like, crazy. Maybe like do something else. 3 months later, I go back and I'm like, look at what we have. You want to do a deal? And he was like, let's do it.
That's wild.
So it's just, I feel like staying consistent.
Lights a fire under your ass.
Yeah. And like you said too, it's like they were struggling at the time. They're the ones who gave us 3 months free on a deal because they were trying to fill up, 50 units.
Crazy
so that's
how the world works, man. It always comes full circle. Yeah. It's crazy. That's why you can never burn a bridge, no matter how, you just never know. You never know like what a connection can lead to. If you leave on bad terms or you like screw somebody over even a little bit, that could always come full circle. Cause you could have, easily, he turned you away one time. Now you're getting him 3 months free. Not like that's like a bad thing, but it's like, I don't know. It's just like the whole thing comes full circle. And I don't even know how to describe that. I think you know what I mean a little bit about
100%.
that.
I know what you mean.
So what's the next step? So the Airbnb arbitrage right now is the goal to kind of save up enough cash to start developing and buying properties and like kind of ownership? Or are you going to try to continue to scale the arbitrage aspect of it?
Yeah. So, I go back and forth. Obviously, I want to be able to have long-term assets. That's something that I'm going to do.
Of course.
But at the same time, I feel like if something's working, it's not broke. Don't fix it. Right. So it's like, I want to be able to take this business as far as it could go. And then, with some of the profits, we'll probably start buying properties too. But my main goal right now is, scaling this as much as possible, focusing on coaching, mentoring. That's something that we're going to get into as well. So
for sure. That's huge, especially like educating people like myself or somebody else that's interested in it. There's a lot of money in that and a lot of value too, because then somebody else can take your model and do it themselves, and just start their journey, help a kid out that got rejected for a real estate license. You never know whose life you could change. Yeah. But, so the ownership thing, I kind of want to know a little bit more about what you have going on now. I know you're talking about a couple things that you're developing or like creating. I know you got the coaching stuff, but there's a technology I think that you were telling me a little bit about that you have going on now. Is that?
No, just the coaching. I mean, like I said, the coaching and arbitrage is the main thing that I want to stick to right now. Mm-hmm. Nothing technology. I mean, we were thinking about something maybe in the future, but that would be down the road.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's like a big gap in the coaching industry and mentorship industry, especially in arbitrage.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw names out there, but I feel like there's a lot of people who are taking advantage of people and, charging money and not actually providing value.
Yeah.
So I feel like it could be really good because we have the results and we know that when you genuinely want to help someone, you're going to help them. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the money at that point.
For sure.
So that's definitely something that we want to do.
Hell yeah. I know you got a business partner here and I want to bring him on here in 1 second just to talk for it. But I know we've talked a lot of good value and a lot of great things that has come to you with this Airbnb arbitrage business. Is there any like pitfalls or, some hardships that you faced while scaling this business over the last year that maybe you should give somebody some advice or like to be aware of when you're getting involved in this? I know it all sounds great upside, but of course there's businesses and anything that has some pitfalls to it. Is there any that stand out to you?
100%. There's been a lot of setbacks. There's been a lot of stuff. Like I said, my first property, I was $15K in debt. Yeah. I had no money.
How'd that happen exactly?
Yeah. So it's kind of a crazy story. So basically what happened was the guy that I leased out the property from, he was a new real estate investor. So it was his first purchase. Yeah. And the owner who sold him the property didn't disclose that they needed a full HVAC replacement. They needed to gut out the floors for plumbing, all this stuff. So a week in, we started getting like floods in the house. So I was having to give refunds. And then they had to gut out the floors, which took about a month and a half, and I was still paying rent.
Damn.
And then on top of that, a hurricane hit, so much of my orders got delayed. It was just like a whole
you were probably thinking you were down bad. You probably thought you made the wrong decision at that point.
Honestly, I never feel like I did.
Really?
I never felt like I did. I saw the vision there.
Yeah.
Because I saw that it was getting booked up. Yeah. That's like what I cared about at that point. I'm like, is this thing going to rent? Because my biggest fear before was like, are people even going to want to like book here? Like I didn't know anything at that point. And that was before we knew about pricing strategy and professional photography and design and everything like that, which could actually take your property to the next level, but other than that, I mean, we had a bunch of pitfalls. I mean, we lost, I think probably $30,000. This is kind of a complicated situation, but basically when you have a property management software, it links your Airbnb and your VRBO calendars. So when we first got this software, we didn't know at the time that VRBO, the way they do payouts, if someone, let's say, books in September, they pay you out on the spot. Like, let's say someone books in March.
Okay.
They'll pay you months early.
Okay.
So we had a bunch of cash sitting in our account that we thought, these people are going to stay anyway. And then last minute before they canceled and the money was already in our account. So we spent it. Airbnb doesn't do it like that. So that was definitely a big setback that set us back a little bit, but we figured
just like
it
a
out.
learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Learning curve.
Do you ever get worried about like, you're taking on all these properties, right? 48. What happens if like 1 month, do you ever get worried about like, there's not going to be filled up at all? I know you said like all of them are profitable, which is crazy to hear because it's in one unit. So you'd think that like maybe one is vacant every now and then, or like one isn't performing as well as the others, which I'm sure happens, but does that ever like cross your mind where you're locked into these long-term leases, but like you're not getting the bookings to turn over that profit? Has that ever crossed your mind at all? Because I feel like that's like something has always been like, maybe this isn't the right thing for me to get into.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, no, because we've been through the whole year. We've seen the highs and lows. We know how it works. And that's where I feel like I'm like a nerd when it comes to pricing strategy. Like I think it's so important, being able to fill up. I think our average occupancy across the whole portfolio is like 92%.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm not too worried about it. And that's like what we were talking about before, like cutting overhead costs and cutting cleaning expenses and cutting anything extra you can.
Yeah.
Because let's say you do have a bad month, you're still going to be profitable.
Hell
you know, if you're cutting other things and make it, if you have good SOPs, good systems,
of course,
you'll be fine.
I feel like the first month is always like the hardest because you got to furnish it. You're spending a lot of money at first, but then there's ways that you can just put it on a credit card. And if you're saying you can make a profit off of like 2 or 3 months down the road, everything's paid for. And then you just kind of like snowball affected from there, right? Is that kind of like the way to look at it?
Definitely.
For somebody to get started, at least.
For sure. And that's where my business partner comes in, Connor. You know, he's super good with the funding. He knows a lot about that. So he's able to acquire 0% interest credit cards super fast. So luckily that's not something that I have to worry about too much. Yeah. Cause I mean, at the end of the day, we have 12 months to pay it off.
Yeah. I was going to say that at scale at that level, are you just sitting on like a bunch of credit card, no interest right now, and then you're going to pay it off like at the end? Is that kind of like the model right now? Just get a bunch and then let that profit kind of pay it off itself?
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So I'd say the average ROI, it's probably 3 to 4 months. Yeah. That's average. Cool. There's some that's less. There's some that's more.
Yeah.
For the last the last deal that we got, I think we'll break even by next month. And we got it a month and a half ago just because we're in busy season. Yeah. But yeah, it depends what time you take the deal, you know. There's so many factors that play into it. If you take a deal in the middle of slow season, you might be looking at a 5-month ROI. You take a deal in the midst of busy season, you could break even in a month. Yeah. And profit off the rest of the concession. So it all kind of depends on when you're taking it.
Dude, this is so fascinating to me. I'm sorry for asking a million questions, but you're answering all of them like on the spot. It's like everything that you're filling all the gaps for like me or anybody listening or, you know, anybody to need the knowledge to be like, I want to get started in this, because clearly it's changed your life in the last year or two, I guess, too. It's just, your story is so inspiring. It's like, I'm being rejected. I can't even get like a real estate license, but now here I am managing $150,000 a month and 58 units. You know, it's crazy to think about, man, like the scale. Man. And it's especially so fast, right? It's so inspiring. Your story's so cool. And being so young, 22 years old, like the sky's the limit for you, man. I love hearing this kind of stuff. You got such a great story. It's so knowledgeable in the marketplace too. So, this is going to be a unique kind of podcast for me because I haven't really brought on 2 guests before. But before I bring them on, I kind of want to hear, it's always tradition to ask what your next move is to continue the success that you've had before we bring on your business partner over here.
For sure. So my goals for the next couple of months, I want to make sure we went through a crazy scaling period. So I think for the next few months, I actually want to focus on the quality control of the business. Yeah. I want to make sure things are running smooth. Like I said, I want to make sure we have more leadership in the company, making sure everything's perfect. Yeah. And then once all that's set, we're going to go crazy. Hell yeah. We're going to start taking 50, 60 units at a time.
Damn. Kind of level set before you really see an explosion.
For sure. And I'm trying to learn from the mistakes of big companies in our space. For example, there was a bunch of companies recently who just went bankrupt. And I was trying to analyze those situations and be like, okay, why did this happen? Why did a big company who's, you know, venture capitalist backed go out of business?
Similar to your space, like Airbnb Arbitrage?
Same exact thing.
Okay.
So there's companies like Stay Front Desk who have thousands of units who just filed for bankruptcy. Damn. Because I feel like they're focused on the wrong things. They're focused on just unit count. How many units could we get as fast as possible? They don't even care about profitability because at that point, they're raising money. Exactly. So they don't care. They don't care. So they're like, oh, well, if we build a brand around it, eventually we'll be profitable. And then until the point where the investors are like,
that's the wrong way.
Exactly. So we're trying to do the opposite of that. We want to actually focus on making sure our guests love to stay, making sure our systems are perfect, making sure our assistants and our cleaners are trained well. And then once all that's perfect, we want to scale pretty heavy. So.
Damn. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to be probably the top dog in the United States, man. You're really looking at this in all the right angles and filling in all the holes that I thought, like, maybe I should get involved in this, maybe I shouldn't. But like, you've answered literally every single question. The fact that you're analyzing other companies that are gone bankrupt, those are the pitfalls that I'd be like, okay, I got to be worried about this. But if you're already aware of that and self-aware to be like level set before we see that next explosion and growth, then you're going to be just fine, man. I'm excited to see what you guys do in the next few years.
I appreciate it, bro.
Of course, man. And I hope you don't mind if I ever like hit you up and we can talk about a little bit of this.
Anytime.
Maybe we'll go in on something together. That'd be dope.
That'd be awesome, man.
But I know you got someone here, man. I want to bring him on. And I know you guys are doing some cool stuff. He's an old guest on the Next Move podcast. Before I even had this set up, it was on a couch, man. So I kind of want to bring on Simon. So Simon, get in here, man. So I want to welcome. I've never had 2 people on here, so this is kind of cool to see. I know you guys are doing some pretty. I know you're doing cool shit. I know you've been doing cool shit for a long time, building all these houses in Tampa and St. Pete, and you were over in Clearwater for a while. You're a wild man. I love hearing your story, and everything you got going on is always so different. But I want to hear a little bit about what you guys got going on together now. I know you were doing Airbnb. You're obviously crushing in short-term rentals. Is there something you guys are working on together and partnering up on?
Yeah. So, I feel like the main thing is, like I said before, there's a big gap in the coaching industry. Yeah. And the perfect thing is Simon has a lot of of knowledge about property ownership.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of knowledge about Airbnb arbitrage. And I feel like a lot of people in this space, Simon, I want to get your thoughts on this too, but I feel like a lot of people in this space will always argue which one's better. You should only do one, this and that.
Yeah.
So we're like, we should come together and do something 2 in 1 so we could actually build a full path, you know, because arbitrage is a low barrier of entry. You don't need a lot of money to start. Sure. So it's like, if you could start with that, and then Simon brings in his expertise on property ownership and short-term rentals, I feel like it's the perfect fit.
For sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we are combining our expertise to bring something that isn't available out there yet. There's a lot of coaches, consultants, people that teach Airbnb and arbitrage, but there is nobody that teaches a process or a system which can accommodate someone's needs. Doesn't matter where you are, whether you have zero money to your name or you have millions of dollars to invest, there is something that you can take away from this. So we have a 4-step system that we have developed. Arbitrage is one of those steps. So it starts off like this. You first become a manager. So as a manager of properties, this is for somebody who, let's say, has access to no capital. They get started in the game, and they're primarily going to landlords, especially right now. There's a lot of opportunity to go to those because there's a lot of listings on Zillow, on the MLS for rent that have been sitting for 6 months, 8 months, and they haven't rented out yet. And you're doing a pitch. You were saying, hey, I will turn this into an Airbnb. You furnish it. I will manage the property, and you just pay me a management fee. I'm incentivized to make you as much money as possible because the more money I make you, the more money I make as a manager as well.
Yeah.
This also lets you build up your skill and kind of get familiar with the whole space. So if you're just starting out, you have no capital to risk, this is a safe model.
Yeah.
After you have done that and built up a solid foundation, made a couple of $1,000s and learned the skills required, you can then become what we refer to as arbitrager, somebody like Jack who can then do this on their own and actually get units and take a little bit more risk, furnish them themselves, take on the liability, but also have more profit potential.
Wow.
Right. After that, you transition into property acquisition and you become a property owner where now you're using the profits from arbitrage and you're purchasing properties. You now have ownership, because with arbitrage, the thing is, if you're doing it incorrectly or whatever happens, let's say your rent is $4,500 and you make $4,800 from revenue. That month, you technically only made $300.
Yeah.
With ownership, let's say the same exact scenario, but now you own the property. Your payment is $4,500. You make $4,800 in revenue. You still technically made $4,800 because you're putting that money into equity in your home, right?
Exactly.
So every month you're paying down your mortgage. So there's a much bigger potential for that. Then there's an even step further, which is where I'm now getting to, is I refer to it as a deal architect.
Okay.
So with your network, with your skills, with your expertise, you're now syndicating deals. You're finding partners to partner up with. You're raising capital, and now you're deploying that capital into deals combined. So let's say all of us have a great relationship. We've done business before. I come to Scotty and I say, hey, give me $500,000. I go to Connor, I go to somebody else, and I raise a couple of $1 million. And now instead of buying just one property or arbitraging properties, I can buy a whole apartment complex and do a joint venture or a fund strategy.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a path, right? It's not just arbitrage is the way or ownership is the way or management is the way. It's all of them. It's just sequentially, how do you do it? And how do you determine and have self-awareness of your skill and your resources to know which one's right for you?
Yeah, that's great. And you guys are building this together. I'm assuming this has like a platform where somebody will pay for the coaching program. And I'm assuming you come in and you get to step one, or like, would you refer to it as 4 pillars?
Yeah. Well, with coaching, there's different ways of coaching. So there is a do-it-yourself, right? Which somebody gives you information, you consume it, and you're on your own, right? Then there is a done with you service, which is where we stand with. There's some information like videos, documents, PDFs, explainers that you have to go through yourself. But then we're here to offer additional coaching, answer questions, handhold you, help you find deals, help you negotiate contracts.
Yeah.
Then there's also like done for you, which some people, those are like really high ticket things. Somebody pays you $50,000 and you set up a property for them. You do everything for them.
Yeah,
right?
That's awesome.
So we're in that kind of in between done with you space.
That's so great. And I'm assuming like in order to, you could probably take a lot of people that are already involved in arbitrage, right? But kind of like educate them on the roadmap, because not only are you guys educating them, for somebody like me, if I were to come in and be like, hey, I want to learn arbitrage, where do I start on one of those 4 tiers that you talked about? you could kind of like recommend me somewhere, right? Maybe I start on tier 2, right? I got a couple $1,000s saved up. I can start investing in a couple of them, but you're almost like, one, I can learn the process of all of the things that we just talked about, but it's also, where can I take this, right? Then it becomes, like I said, property ownership. Is that your goal? You said, I kind of want to, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But then there's other levels to the game too.
For sure.
So it's cool that you guys are creating this whole new community, right? It's kind of like, is that a right way to describe it?
Definitely. I think the thing is too, obviously the end goal is long-term wealth.
Yeah.
And the best way to get there is through property acquisition, like Simon talked about. So I definitely eventually want to start buying. But, you know, I have something that's working right now and I want to stick to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's things that you could take from both. And that's the best part about it. There's things that Simon will teach that people could take away. There's things that I'm going to teach that people could take away.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. So
and
I think
there's
it'll be
so many synergies. Like, for example, I own properties, but I don't manage any of my properties. People are like, oh, how are you in the Airbnb space? And you have a property management company? Like, where does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then you ask yourself, like, leverage and opportunities. Do you think Jeff Bezos packages his own Amazon packages, or somebody packages his boxes for him?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's the same thing with management, right? So there's all those things that we complement each other in our respectful ways, where he has certain expertise and I do something completely opposite, and both of those ways work.
For sure.
Right.
And how is this being structured? Is this launched out there already, or is it currently in place, or what's your guys' roadmap to kind of launch this? I know there's probably so much going internally to build out a team to, you know, educate on each one of those tiers, or if you guys are doing it personally, or what's the roadmap look like on that?
So initially it's just the two of us as educators.
Oh, really?
We have a very extensive curriculum, and that we're bringing on coaches that we have vetted to make sure that they have done what they say that they are doing, whether through verifying their revenue and making sure that they're actually experts, not just gurus, right?
Awesome. Yeah, just somebody posting content and having the reach. That's awesome. So what are you guys, are you paying the mentors and stuff like that? Is that the goal, to pay them to be a part of the community, and then they'll bring in
eventually
people?
Yeah, we want to make sure that everything's smooth and operating well from just the two of us. Right? And then as we start growing, we start onboarding and listening to people's needs. And if somebody comes in and says, hey, you know, we think this person would be great, we schedule an interview and make sure that it's a fit for our company culture as well. Yeah,
this is great. I mean, I feel like I can already see the success happening before it's even launched. Do you guys have like a target date that this is going to be kind of like a launch thing, or is it kind of just granularly getting out there?
I feel like we're hoping within the next 2 months.
Wow,
I think that's a
quick.
good timeline. But obviously we want to make sure the quality's there, right? If we're going to be selling something, we want to make sure it's perfect. We want to make sure that people will actually benefit from it, not just putting out, you know, a random 5-hour course.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
you know, we want to make sure that people could actually benefit from it.
And is this a subscription model? Is it a one-time fee, or like how do people kind of find you, or like what's the process to be like, say I want to learn a lot from you guys?
It first starts off with a consultation call, just to make sure that we can even help you and address your needs, because we want to make sure that we're not just taking money from you and we can't even help you reach your goals and needs. So it starts off with that. And after we decide that, hey, this is a good fit for you and we can help you, then we get more into onboarding you into our exclusive platform, which we're finalizing and building out right now. There's going to be a lot of content in there. And then through a series of weekly coaching calls and different topics and Q&As, we support you and answer any questions. And then might be doing in-person meetups every quarter or something like that.
Cool.
To
That's really
bring
cool.
people together.
And it's such a large community. I mean, real estate, you could vet anybody, right? Like I'm in the finance and marketing world, right? But I am so interested in this. You could almost like vet me, right? And then you could also do anybody that's a real estate broker that wants to start learning a little bit. So I feel like the community's already out there. It's just kind of like getting the name out there. Do you guys have a name that you guys are calling it, or am I not allowed to know that yet?
Yes, I mean, I don't mind.
It's
called it's STR Navigator, so short-term rental navigator. Simple, not anything crazy.
Deliverable.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you got like, obviously a logo and everything like that ready to drop. Is it going on? Is it going to have its own page, or are you guys going to have it on your socials to start promoting it?
Majority of it is going to come through our personal brands at first.
Yeah,
we want to make sure that we're working with people who are already familiar with the type of work we do.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people and a lot of demand already just hitting us up, being like, "Hey, I've been watching you build this business over the last 2 years. I'm really interested.
Yeah,
can you help me do the same thing?"
Yeah, man, I've been seeing you build so many things. I'm like, damn, this dude is so fascinating. Everything you've been doing, man, is awesome. And you work in silence too. It's really inspiring.
Absolutely, and it's also been a refresher coming from a trading space, because I still partake in trading.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of benefits to short-term rentals for somebody that is, let's say, involved in just trading. Because you got to realize, let's say you make $1 million in trading, that's just ordinary income, right? Yeah. But now if you get involved into an active business in real estate, like short-term rentals, and you own properties and you spend at least $700 hours a year managing or running your real estate properties, you become classified as a real estate professional. So then you can do accelerated depreciation studies and offset a lot of that income that otherwise you have no way of offsetting as a trader.
Exactly.
So as a trader, what are your expenses? Okay, your computer, your mouse, your office. Yeah. There's only so much you can write off.
And then you're paying like 30%, 36% in taxes and stuff. But yeah, I've always been meaning to have this conversation with you or anybody. You know, how has that been? Like, I guess you don't have to pay Uncle Sam this year, which is probably one of the biggest benefits, right, to real estate. So it's so cool to like see what you guys have been building. Like you have been working on, you know, owning them, developing the properties, and then Airbnb them out. You've been doing the arbitrage stuff. Like you said, there's like people say one way is the right way, one way is the right way, but you guys are kind of collaborating in the space and creating a community where it's like, there's no right way. Here's the roadmap to help you to get to whatever one that you are the best at, right? Is that kind of like the vision here?
For sure. And that's why it kind of annoys me when people bicker and argue about which one's better.
Yeah.
Because everyone could help each other at the end of the day. Everyone's trying to have a successful business. Everyone's trying to learn. Yeah. So it's like, if you could put those two things together and grow together, that's the best way to do it. Yeah. You know, because if you could start, or if someone already has leftover money, if they were in the trading space and they have the extra money to throw into real estate to buy a property, great. Yeah. But, you know, if you were someone in my situation who, you know, was in debt and didn't have any money, then, you know, you could go from arbitrage to ownership. So I think they go hand in hand, if anything.
Man. This is dope, guys. I feel like you guys are building an empire like right before our very eyes. And I know you've been doing so much work on the back end of everything that hasn't been launched yet, but I'm excited to see all the work that you guys have been putting into, because I know it's been a lot behind closed doors. So, I mean, I guess this is, like I said, it's the first time I've had two people on here, and I know, Simon, you've only been here a minute. I'd love to get you on again and hear some updates on your personal journey. But I asked you what your next move was, and I feel like I have to kind of ask you collectively as what's your next move for the coaching program? How are you guys going to see that launch of success? What's your journey there?
Well, there's also a lot of things when it comes to launching products, right? I think we kind of have the power team because we complement each other in our skills. You know, with me, for this particular project, I've elected more so the role of, you know, the front end stuff, the marketing, and also the vision of developing a great product. Yeah. I've always had an eye for, you know, building things and making sure that they are not only visually appealing, but also make sense of like the customer journey. Like, how do you go from stranger to now? How do we make sure the onboarding for the customers is the most efficient and enjoyable process, right? How do we make sure everything's value packed as possible? And it's not just, you know, the course doesn't just consist of Loom recording videos that, you know, there's a lot of stuff and that goes in there. And also obviously marketing and promoting it is going to be the big stuff. With Jack and his experience with running a lot of the systems for managing the Airbnbs that he has right now, he has developed exceptional operational skills, right? So Jack is more so taking on the responsibility of, you know, a lot of the operational things of the business, right? And we have that perfect synergy and partnership that allows us to excel in our fields and really triple down and not step on each other's toes. Because what happens in a lot of businesses, and I actually recommend, there's a book called Rocket Fuel, which talks about the CEO visionary and more so like a CEO operator relationship, and how do you find those two people and what two skill sets go into it, and how do you make sure, again, that you are not stepping on each other's toes? Because oftentimes people go in business and they have the same strengths and everything they do is in the same alley, right? And then they wake up one day and they're like, why is the business not working? Well, because you guys are tripling down on the exact same thing. And
exactly.
You have the exact same skills.
Yeah. And it's always hard to find those right business partners. So it's obviously working out here. And it's like, that's like one of the hardest things, to find those people you can actually work with to scale. But it's good to see that you guys have that vision already together. And like I said, I'm excited to see this. And Jack, you got a hell of a story, man. I know we got a lot more to catch up on and everything like that. On a personal level, I'm glad you came in today. I'm glad we got to know each other a little bit more, Simon. I'm happy to see you again, man. It's been a long time. We got to connect more. I feel like we kind of just like fall off a little bit, do our own thing, and then come back, and like there's so much to catch up on. I'd love to catch up with you a little bit more, especially after this podcast. But you guys are two powerhouses in one room. Hopefully you guys see three powerhouses in one room at some point here. I'd love to work with you guys in some aspect, if any way possible, or support you guys any way I can. But I don't think that you guys need any help, because I know it's going to be successful regardless of whatever you guys do. But thank you guys for coming on and talking shop a little bit. And I'm excited to see what you guys have coming out in the next few months.
I appreciate it, Scotty. It was awesome, man.
You guys.
Thank you.